Over recent years, changes made across new video games or remasters and remakes of previous titles based off of sensitivity issues has had me wondering what is even the point for game rating structures like the ESRB or PEGI. When a game is rated M for mature or PEGI 18, it's obviously supposed to contain content inside that is intended for mature audiences, and its distribution towards kids or teenagers is not recommended or in some cases even allowed. I'm not really sure if this is enforced by the law in some places. I personally never had an issue with buying video games that had a PEGI 18 label on them. Stores never made me show my ID like they did for alcohol, so I can't really speak as to that extreme. I know that digital stores like Steam, for example, you can just lie and set up any date of birth that you want to and access whatever games you want, but the intent of the system is still there. Mature content for mature audiences. You buy it at your discretion, and honestly these labels even go as far as to have their own little tags. For example, a violence tag, an obscene language tag, drug use tag, etc. There's a lot of them, so in a way, this kind of already acted as its own little trigger warning for people to buy these games, again, at their own discretion. So it's not even just an age or maturity barrier that is already in place, there's also one that flags any potential quote-unquote triggering content for people to play with the things that interest them and avoid the things that they happen to have a serious problem with seeing depicted or whatever the issue may be. And yet, we're still going through a hypersensitive time where these labels and these tags don't really mean anything anymore, because the content in the games is still subject to getting changed or removed or sanitized because of containing mature content that is intended for mature audiences in a game that's already been rated as mature. All because some people like to make it their business to ruin other people's entertainment with ridiculous arguments that imply that the content in the game is harmful or irresponsible in some way or another, and that it should be barred from society entirely. They have gone well beyond catering their own content to their own tastes and triggers, and into the territory of dictating whether or not the content should even be sold if it includes things that they don't like. It's like going out and seeing a poster saying that an edgy comedian is coming to town.
Hey, time for a few fart jokes.
You know that he's an edgy comedian, his reputation precedes him, it's all over the poster itself, but you buy a ticket anyway just to go to the venue and get offended in person, so you can start a hashtag movement about it on social media the next day, whining about how personally hurt you were at something that you fully bought into, knowing what it was.
Some people are really f***ing stupid.
And sadly, companies and society in general really has just gotten to a point where we're so incredibly spineless that we cater to this hypersensitive garbage when, for years, everything was pretty clear. We had the rating system for the ages, we had the tags for some specifics, and we even had some that warned of in-game purchases, for example, which feels like the only useful type of label anymore. And if you looked at a product and you liked what the product advertised itself as, and you checked the labels in the back and you found that there's nothing that crosses your boundaries or that you feel sensitive to, then you'd buy it. And if instead you found content that did not fit your taste or sensitivities, then you wouldn't buy it. And that's it. End of story. People just minded their business, and if ever some random dumbass rose up like, I think this is bad, we just ignored the crazy person and life moved on. The system worked flawlessly, and the lack of overly cautious hypersensitivity allowed creative freedom to flourish. For truly gripping and captivating stories to be told, with story themes and wild settings that were allowed to be heavy and even explore real-life politics in compelling ways where those sad politics and dark themes were used as writing devices. Not for propaganda, but for good storytelling and world-building purposes, including shock value, and of course without the idiotic notion that if we include elements like that, we need to go all crazy on it like we do right now, over-examining everything, forcing the developer's viewpoint on it, making sure that it's as sanitized as possible, traipsing on eggshells just to make sure that no negative stereotypes are being depicted or that no overly dark imagery is being displayed because it might trigger someone or exclude someone else or make someone feel bad for some other reason or whatever. That was then. Now though, for some reason we're doing the latter. matter. All someone had to do was ignore the games that they didn't like or that they couldn't play, just like I have been successfully avoiding the Amnesia games for years, or the rest of Alien Isolation after the tutorial introduction. Honestly, I don't even know why the game is called Alien to begin with. There's no such thing. Never has been, never will be. Not in this house. But if something is offensive to some Karen, then everyone else has to know it, and the makers of the game have to either cancel it or change the content in it to appease them. We have allowed this to run rampant for far too long, and there isn't even any way to understand why. Honestly, not for me at least. I have no idea when it was that minding our own business went out of fashion. But please bring it back. These days, it feels like we can't go a couple of months without hearing about yet another case of some kind of older content being altered in some way for a remaster or a remake or a re-release, or some kind of new game coming out where you can notice a pattern of choices that undermine or outright remove content that would make sense to be there. As a quick rough example, in Dragon Age Veilguard, the dark aspects of the franchise were totally removed to make for a much safer, Disney-fied world building and presentation. And speaking of Disney, a game like Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor should have had a total field day with dismemberment. But instead, human bodies such as bandits or stormtroopers can only have occasional and limited dismemberment, specifically of their arms. Meanwhile, creatures and robots can be totally split in half, either vertically or horizontally. The popularity of mods that reskin Cal Kestis into Darth Maul and allow players to absolutely destroy scores of enemies shows not only a desire for darker themes in these games like a Grey Jedi or maybe even a full-blown Sith story, but also for lightsabers to go back to being actual lightsabers rather than the mildly inconvenient light sticks that Disney turned them into. But it's like we can't have neither of these things anymore. Fun is strictly forbidden in modern AAA video games unless it's safe and endorsable. But anyway, these are just a couple of examples of cases where there's no changes from previous iterations of the same game, but where there is precedent from previous games in the same genre or franchise for there to be specific elements that are just not present. And of course, in the cases of actual changes from previous content, previous games, or previous iterations of the same game, we have all manner of examples to draw from these days. If you've been keeping up with the news recently in the games industry, there's a game buzzing around right now because of this. The game is called Ready or Not, and it's a first-person tactical shooter where you play as a SWAT guy and you come across all manner of very heavy and dark subjects and imagery. This was actually a main appeal for this game, presenting the dark and gritty nature of the brutal reality that certain agents in law enforcement go through. The shock value is a pillar of the game. Without it, it's just another shooter. Sure, it's still very well realized. There's still a lot of fun to be had with the challenging nature of being able to clear a level as fast as possible or as efficiently as possible, but that is a key part of its DNA. If you take it out, there's nothing that stands out about it that some other company can just recreate it and make it even better with a little bit more money. Yet, regardless, after the game being on Steam for so many years in its original unapologetic state, it has now been changed across all platforms, removing or sanitizing several evocative elements in very damaging ways that compromise that original tone, at least from some missions. And then of course, if they did it for these missions, there's always the hesitation that this is who the studio is now and any future content is compromised as well. I made an individual video on this if you guys are interested in the details. The link will be in the description and top comment of this video. Also, some people were complaining in the comments that I referred to a scene in the game where there's a child having a seizure as to it being a girl having a seizure. I got that detail wrong, I'm sorry about that. However, number one, I was only reading what the website was reporting, it's literally on screen as I'm saying it, and then people didn't like how I drew a comparison to an adult woman having a seizure in Cyberpunk as an example that other games have been allowed to depict this kind of thing on consoles before. But number two, in this particular scenario, it doesn't really matter whether it's a woman or a child. This is a video game, it's fiction, and in this particular case, the fiction is meant to be dark, brutal, and shocking. It's meant to have a heavy impact on players, just as similar situations have on SWAT teams in real life. Except, of course, it's meant to have that impact from the safety confines of fiction. That's the beauty of fiction, in fact. To see and experience things that range from the most whimsically unrealistic fantasies to the darkest, most off-putting nightmares, all from the safety of our couches or gaming chairs, all from the safety of fiction. In a case like this, it doesn't matter if it's a child, a dog, a woman, a man, a leprechaun, Cthulhu, Bugs Bunny, or the fucking Pope. It's not real, brother. I don't know how else this can be explained outside of a long set of therapy sessions. We all know that there are certain limits to what can be depicted in a game, especially as to what can be acted on in a game. But these limits are quite extreme. Like, we have to be talking about the kind of crap that can even be spoken of in a video without triggering terms of service flag of some kind. We're talking about depraved shit for depraved reasons, and a child seizing on a bed as part of a set dressing for a gritty realism SWAT game isn't even goddamn close. Can we stop pretending like children can't be depicted suffering in a game in some way or another? Or are we going to go down the rabbit hole of video games that have done this kind of thing? Are we about to shut down the entire industry of horror games? Are we about to cancel Hideo Kojima for putting a baby in a box and stressing the fuck out of it while we're delivering pizza? Or the child soldiers in Metal Gear Solid? Are we about to sue Bethesda for all of those dead kids in Big Town and Fallout 3? Or the enslaved ones at Eulogy Jones Camp? Or the ones that we can sell into slavery ourselves? Or the baby in the Pit DLC? Do we take Nexus mods to jail for having mods up that let us throw Skyrim kids off of the Keep in Whiterun? Do we need to change the story of Heavy Rain because of how stressful it may be for some people to have the trauma of a missing child be the centerpiece of the entire game? Again, it's not real, brother! Oh, and I guess not for nothing, but I'll also add this just in case we get comments saying the Cyberpunk comparison is BS because a woman cannot be compared to a kid having a seizure. Fine then. I evoke Dying Light, which has a toddler spazzing out, puking up black goo, and running straight at us before we blast it out of a window. There you go. Now you have another game to go make a fucking lame-ass cancel campaign against on social media while calling other people the crybabies for not shitting their pants over a bit of shock in a mature video game. But anyway, let's move on. Of course, gore and shocking imagery aren't the only things that get impacted by this. Things get much weirder. We also had Oblivion remastered back in April, releasing with several elements changed from its original vision. Lots of them to do with undermining women and their bodies, from original designs that were unashamedly curvy, expressive, and sometimes even a little bit provocative, to now designs that are flat and antithetical to the very setting of the game. Basically, imagine if someone made games or movies of ancient Rome or Greece and failed to portray the focus that their sculptors and painters gave to beauty, virility, strength, and sexuality in their works of art, instead making bland statues that don't stand out at all for gods and heroes. This is what they did in Oblivion with random statues and even some statues that are presenting the Daedra, among other things like changing clothing pieces and even doing away with the term male and female in the character creator. I know that on the surface it doesn't look like a big deal. You can still create your character and play the game. After all, the statues may not look as good as they used to, but they still provide their quests, etc., so on and so forth.
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
But sadly, with these things, it's never just one thing, it's never just one change, it's always a growing problem. And while I'm not hardline on boycotting a game, especially one where there's still so much perfectly good and fine content for people to experience and have a great adventure in, I do think that we should still keep these things in mind and speak out against them. There's nothing wrong with enjoying a video game and still saying, hey, I see what you're doing here with these changes and I don't like it. Some people get way too lost on this whole, like, it's either A or B and nothing else in between. But anyway, moving on. The same kind of thing is a non-stop issue in the modding world as well, where several mods for various games are being removed from Nexus because of some stupid shit that never makes any sense and that has never been an issue for decades. decades, man, like seriously, again, I will never understand where we went wrong, that for decades we were all far more mature than we are now, far more mentally healthier as well, where we would see content that we don't like or that we don't want to play, and we would just not play it and that's it. Whereas now we're bending over to unhinged morons with no life at all besides trying to control what other people are allowed to think, say, or have in their goddamn fiction, or mod sites for that matter. Stellar Blade also suffers from this same issue where pressure was applied trying to get the game either cancelled or have its main character depiction altered to be more tame, as if the unapologetic display of an attractive woman was somehow this monstrous thing that we just can't have out in the open for whatever reason. Oh, who am I kidding? Why am I even bothering to mince words here? The reason is pretty obvious. I mean, let's be real here, it's because of a continuous hatred of men. That's why the double standard exists, where male characters in the same games can be portrayed any way that the developers feel like. That's why Kratos can charge into battle with his torso completely uncovered and little more than just some cloth around his waist and boots on his feet. It's why Nathan Drake is a handsome hunk, it's why Norman Reedus can be shirtless in Death Stranding, hell, not even just shirtless actually, it's why he can be completely naked in the shower with close-up shots of his body. It's why Chris Hemsworth can be butt naked in the Marvel movies. It's why the same games that you have female armors altered to look covered up, such as Oblivion Remastered again, you can fully take your shirt off as a male character and run around, and nobody bats an eye. Nobody tries to cancel anything, nobody tries to send in a formal letter of complaint. No game journalists come out trying to shame the players playing the game or the developers making the game or trying to get the publisher to fucking cover the character up, you know, that's why. It's pretty goddamn obvious why. It's just that these people don't want to admit it to themselves. There's also been a lot of changes done when it comes to gender selectors in video games, the whole thing with male and female being replaced with the body type thing when they're not even doing body types at all. Like, the only game in recent memory where I can pick a body type that I can think of is Dragon's Dogma 2, where you can play as a big buff guy or a short skinny guy or a fat dude or a freak with the body proportions of an eldritch horror. These are body types, I'll grant you that, but those other ones aren't really body types, they're just genders. They're just either male or female, but the names are changed because there's about 11 people on the planet who would take offense to that. And of those 11, neither of them would even be buying these games anyway, so of course naturally we have to change it. Trust me, it makes sense. Don't ask questions, just fucking do it. This is present in all kinds of games, new ones and old ones via remasters or remakes such as the Oblivion Remaster, and even Japanese stuff like Dragon Quest HD remakes since Square Enix demanded it so that it could be sold out here in the West. Literally. There's some people out in Japan who must think that we really are fucked up over here because we'll spaz out if we see the words male and female. And this one, honestly, isn't even something that we could fix with any rating systems. Like, there's just nothing that we can do here. This case right here just straight up requires therapy or some shit. There's really nothing going on here. And I mean therapy for me, by the way, because honestly, guys, I don't know how much more of this I can take. Or, alternatively, and I can't believe I'm about to say this, so brace yourselves, because we are about to praise Dragon Age Veilguard. Alternatively, we could do what Veilguard did, which is to have 3 selections: male, female, and non-binary. At least then they wouldn't be outright excluding the male and female from the equation, because I'm sorry, but if you're going to be bending over backwards because of a few hypothetical snowflakes getting mad at not being included, then why the hell would you not strive to be inclusive of the rest of the goddamn planet as well, and at least keep the damn male and female in there too, so that at least it doesn't look so blatant? There's something very, very deliberate about removing that word. It's one thing to add one more option for inclusion, but it's another thing completely to remove options and replace them with something else that looks more like they're trying to re-educate me on what gender is supposed to be. Oh, a few years ago I would see something like this and I wouldn't even think this far. Of course not, it didn't really matter that much. But now, after the political hellscape that we have been living under for the past 2 years, that's specifically in regards to this, how crazy it all got, it's no accident or small thing anymore, I'm sorry. It just is what it is. And also, if I put on my progressive hat, doesn't that make most sense too? Like, if I cosplay as a non-binary fella for a second, my entire gender ideology hinges on there being more than two genders. So if I'm playing a goddamn game, and the game presents me with two genders, one that is clearly male and one that is clearly female, but it just so happens that their names have been turned into the numbers 1 and 2 or the letters A and B, then what the hell are we even doing? It's still binary. How am I being represented with this garbage? Like, oh hey, there you go, buddy. We changed the name to A and B. A has a pair of balls and B has a pair of tits. Isn't it great? Do you feel represented now? I sure hope you do, buddy. Because over here at multi-billion-dollar company, we care. Oh, brother. So yeah, there you go, a positive thing about Veilguard. Don't you ever dare badmouth me on this channel saying that I'm a bad actor who is too harsh on Veilguard or too negative or whatever. But on a serious note, even though this is already crossing over into a completely different realm where it's not about game ratings, it's still falling into the same theme of changes being applied to games because of narcissists being too damn loud online and weaponizing empathy to take control of more and more of our entertainment. And I hate seeing this too, because it's not even that I have a problem with empathy. There's nothing wrong with it at all. It's a great thing to have. But when you weaponize it, you take away its value. You just diminish it into something disingenuous, something that isn't real, something that is just there to be used as a sword and a shield. Oh, I have no doubt at all that this all started years ago from a good place. I don't think that I'm cynical or jaded enough to believe that this entire thing had rotten roots from the beginning. But whatever potential good roots there were, it's been long overtaken by a terrible corruption for power and control that has just been so bad in so many ways. Media has been deeply affected by this, and so has society in general. It's not healthy at all to be able to look at a piece of art, be it a game or a movie or a book or anything else, and be unable to just enjoy it. To dive into a world of fiction, get immersed and let adventure take you away, because off the get-go, they are immediately trying to identify red flags to complain about or green flags to add to their tally and claim the piece of media as one that supports their ideological stances. Living like this sounds horrible, and I can only be thankful that I woke up and jumped out of the rabbit hole in my early 20s before it sucked me in entirely. So if this is continuously going on with no signs of stopping, why are we still bothering with game rating systems? Just cut them out altogether, they don't matter anymore. If, as an adult, I cannot play a game with adult themes because the goddamn companies publishing and making the games outright refuse to contain adult themes in their games anyway, because every game must be tailored to be open to everyone, and any and all mature content or content that depicts high-stress situations or imagery must be toned down or straight up removed because it's insensitive to someone or harmful to someone else, or it's way too shocking and bad or maybe problematic to some imaginary person in some hypothetical case, then what the fuck is the point? Hell, they'll even save money on the fees that they have to pay ratings boards like the ESRB and PEGI, and you never know, but this money may come in really handy when their sales continue to plummet due to these games becoming more and more dull, repetitive, sanitized, and safe for global consumption, with their boring and uninteresting characters and scenarios that elicit nothing but a goddamn disappointing sigh. And please understand that I'm not drawing a line in the concrete like, unless your game is edgy, it sucks. Hell no, I'm an avid enjoyer of games in the cozy genre. Sometimes I have a shitty day and I go home and I unwind with a shooter, and other times I go and I unwind with decorating a home or farming. I have no problem with game variety at all. It's simply that 15 years ago, variety actually existed. We had the harsher games, more mature, more risque, more saucy, let's say, and then we also had the other stuff. And now we're drawing harder and harder lines against certain content, such as the aforementioned grittier elements of Ready or Not, or the simple concept of an attractive female character, and we're saying this is not okay, this is not suitable for global audiences, and therefore it must be erased or changed. That is my problem. And it's just all so tiring, it's so fatiguing. It's as if to say that society has regressed in a manner where we are not mature enough to handle sensitive topics, or hell, not to even just handle it, but to see them depicted in media the same way that our parents and grandparents did. We're just gradually losing that, and it's all in the name of progressivism, even though it looks more like regression. Like, I'm sorry, but it just is what it is. If previous generations managed to watch movies with sensitive subjects, dark themes, or graphic violence without shitting their pants, and now as we go forward we can't do that anymore, and we just justify it as it being harmful or problematic or whatever the fuck else, then that means that we are objectively, mentally, and constitutionally weaker. And it also means that we're dumber as well, because we're losing sight of the line that separates reality from fiction. Again, it's not real, brother.
No way. We got you. We made it up. Not this time. It's totally made up. Pure fiction. This one was invented by a writer. It never happened. We made this one up. It's fiction.
We are blurring it all together, and we're losing our composure and logic over shit that means nothing when it's there. Well, I mean, nothing in terms of their worries and complaints, but it actually means a lot when it comes to creative enrichment, because again, it gives us a much wider array of content that we can make. We get more variety, and the variety is strong because it's not being hindered by creative blocks or sensitivity checkpoints or quotas to meet or lists of restrictions from suits high up in some fucking company board. And the most ironic part of it all is that you look around and society has never been more desensitized and clumsy than it is right now. The very same kind of people who are capable of going online on a Monday and join these cucked out hashtag movements on social media to attack some game and demand changes based on any of the aforementioned factors, be it sexualized content or content that doesn't outright show support for their ideologies or content that contains sensitive imagery, are the very same kind of people who will go online on Tuesday to watch their favorite unhinged political Twitch streamer advocate for or defend violence. And no, not on Minecraft, as they like to say. And you go on social media and all bets are off. Anyone can create a goddamn account with no issues whatsoever. You can be 12 years old and have an account on X or Reddit or whatever the hell you please, where actually obscene and actually shocking content, including nudity, roams freely and exists completely unfiltered. In a goddamn video game, it's still a video game, it's still fiction, it still has its limits, and it's not real. It doesn't carry that weight of it actually being a real act of whatever it may be. It doesn't actually hurt anyone, and the fictional barrier is impenetrable, unless you're retarded. But on social media websites and shitholes like Reddit, you will be exposed to barrages of real shit on a daily basis, and on the comments of those posts you will be exposed to completely unchecked spouts of the worst that humanity has to offer. Literally. The shit that I've seen since I've been back on Twitter because of needing a goddamn place where other content creators can get in touch with me easily, alongside opportunities for early codes for a game or whatever, which, by the way, I'd like to happily announce that a publisher was finally based enough to give me one, more details to follow later this month. It's just nuts. It's stuff that will straight up make you lose faith in humanity sometimes, man. And again, kids are free to create accounts on these places and use them. And they do. Like, this isn't even a hypothetical. I mean, kids are getting spawn camped with phones and shit far earlier now than ever before. Of course they're going online. Of course they're creating social media accounts. Of course they're going on Reddit. Of course they're looking at obscene shit and sharing it with their friends at schools. Whether it be out of morbid curiosity or any other reason, the exposure is constant these days, and the access is so incredibly easy, far plentiful and easier than it's ever been before. And then this kind of action from activists, this exaggeration of what content to control and sanitize with hypersensitivity, is never present on those cases where it would actually matter. And where it doesn't matter, like video games, which already have rating systems, it's present and in force. Oh, what's that? Social media is a cesspit of easily accessible shit where predation is easier than the Cuphead tutorial? Who cares? But oh, what's this? A video game that has gore, sensitive themes, or an attractive female character, or god forbid, a character selector with male and female? Somebody stop them! Oh god! Won't somebody please think of the children of the future? Somebody please do something about this! Something must change here!
Or, here's another idea that's going to be very controversial. You could Shut the fuck up.
And I think that this is the case because none of this shit is real. It's never been. It's never been about caring about anything or protecting anyone, and it's always been about control and self-service. It's not about making your life better or just life in general for everyone. It's just about making it worse for the people that you've decided to hate, scoring points against the tribalistic other side. That's literally the foundation of games journalism these days. It's the infestation of the same problem, but in our space. It's not about the medium. It sure as hell isn't about the games either or their quality. It's not about trying to make the industry more honest or efficient or pro-consumer or any such thing. Hell, they even mocked gamers for standing up against the prospect of $80 games with Borderlands 4. Like, how dare we stand up for consumer rights instead of just sucking corporate cock? It's all about controlling what you can and can't consume. What type of content is in the game? Is it sanitized? Is it not sanitized? How can we sanitize it? How can we push our message through it? How can we get further and further away from the type of media that we used to have? How can we overwrite the content that we used to make? Who cares if kids are going online and being exposed to far worse garbage than any game could ever summon? This isn't about them, this is about winning the ongoing culture war through entertainment, one destroyed franchise at a time. I guess I'll just remain here, desperately waiting for the day where these companies wake up to reality and stop giving so much power, legitimacy, and relevancy to these idiotic metrics about what is and isn't appropriate. It's unpopular, it limits creativity, it breaks immersion, it damages writing and storytelling, and that's to say nothing for the ugly, bland, forgettable character designs that it spawns. Never mind the times where they're memorable for how ugly they are. I mean, at this point, it's either that or a gaming crash. There's no way that these companies can keep running themselves the way that they have been, bloating their studios up, spending irresponsible loads of money making games while at the same time adhering to mentalities and design philosophies that result in boring, uninspired, mediocre content at best and laughable disasters at worst that fail to capture an audience, or that manage to capture an audience once, but then that audience falls off and doesn't come back for the sequel. They can either change or go out of business and let a new generation of studios take their place from their smaller indie and AA roots. I guess we'll see what comes of it. Speak out for the things that matter to you guys, vote with your wallets, and take care of yourselves. Thanks for watching, and huge thanks for all the recent support, crossing 18,000 subscribers. We're close to the big 20, and that feels so surreal. So again, genuinely thank you all so very much. As always, I'll see you guys on the next one.